Hey everybody, it's Chris. We're gonna tear down the engine for the 1600 and see what all is going on in there. I already have the valve cover off, so these bolts or nuts are just on loose. Yeah, now we're to where we need a wrench. If you want to start cracking these loose, kind of keep working your way. Since it's all spring loaded, it can distort it, so you want to just do a little at each time.
Okay, work my way down.
And I'll take this line off. So yeah, like break that one loose. And then the next one.
From a point here where I can just go in and start taking them off.
Yeah, they're all loose now. You can just go ahead and spin them all the way off now. Oops. Grab those. Just the suction of the oil holding them on. A lot cleaner or less rusty than the 1855.
Looks a lot better. Okay.
There's nothing to it.
Yeah. All right.
Could use the impact.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, mine's a little longer than yours. Maybe that side is stuck tougher. I guess I should have brought your breaker back. Alright, let me see.
I'm sure you can. Oh, yeah. Loose.
Yeah, just loosened it for you. Could do these with an impact, but like sometimes if the threads are rusty or crusty or something, you can break them off. So I kind of like to at least get them started by hand to see how. See, that one's probably got some crud down there. It's not gonna break off, but it's not turning real free. So I guess I don't want to. Yeah, you can hear the crud fighting right on that one. Should have left the water pump on. I'm running out of places to pry. There it goes. Okay, now we're ready to pull the head. What do we have?
This one has oil in it.
Yeah, that's the one that had very low compression. This is number 4. You can see it wasn't firing. Guess I'd have to measure and see if these, which size pistons these are. If they're the original, I think the originals were 3.5, and they bumped up to 3 5/8. Well, I think we found the problem. Look at the valve on number 4, the one that only had not even 20 psi compression. Run that light up there over the port, Alan. You can actually see light through it even though it's closed. But number 5 was only putting out 105 psi, which is not very good. And I don't know, without pulling the valves off, how bad the rest of them look. But if we go over to the engine here, I was expecting to see marks from broken rings, but there's a pretty good edge right here, which means it's worn. There's a very significant lip on them, some more than others. This one here, man, is there carbon there? No, it's just number 2 is worn a lot more. Number 1's got a lot of wear, but then number 3 doesn't feel that bad at all. 4 has got a decent, I think we can kind of see that wear lip right there where this is as high as the ring's coming, so they slowly wear into the metal. We can rotate it over and see how it looks, but no cross hatch. Possibly. Let's see. Okay, it is 3. That's 3 3/4. So these are not the original pistons and sleeves. 1600s originally came with a 231 cubic inch engine, which was about 3.5, I believe. And the 1600 is the reason for the certified sticker that appears on the side of Oliver tractors, because they started prior to the 100 series. Oliver tractors had the same displacement, gas or diesel. 880 was 265 cubic inches, whether it was gas or diesel. And the 1600 was a direct replacement for the 880. And they just kept the 265 diesel, pretty much the same engine as a 880. I think they updated the filter to full flow instead of bypass filtration. But 265 cubic inch diesel engine. Few other little changes, but the gas they dropped back to 231. Before it was more about common parts. Ooh, look at the rough edge of that piston there on that side. Wow. Getting a little distracted here, but it's about commonality of parts. By this time they felt that all the different fuel versions should be the same horsepower, and so they started making the gas engines a little smaller. Well, then guys who had 880s and upgraded to 1600s were not happy, because their 880, which had 265 cubic inches, would outpull a 1600 with its only 231 cubic inch gas engine. And it was within about 2 horsepower on Nebraska tests of the diesel engine. And so they kind of met their goal of them being similar horsepower, but customers were not happy because their 880 would outpull a 1600. This tractor looks so much bigger and everything. So finally, to make customers happy, Oliver came out with a kit. They came out with a kit that increased the bore to 3 7/8 inch, which increased the engine to 248 cubic inches. And they did this at a very low cost to the customer. So if they complained, they could get this kit in, have the dealer install it, and increase the displacement of their 1600 and increase the horsepower. But this caused enough of a black eye for Oliver. Rumors about them not having enough power and everything. That's when they came out with the certified horsepower program, starting with the 50 series. Every tractor that rolled off the line would be put on a dyno and tested, and if it didn't meet the minimum horsepower that was advertised, they would do, tweak it, whatever they needed to do, adjust timing. And if they still couldn't, sometimes it involved just letting it run on the dyno for a couple hours until things loosened up. But once it was certified that it was turning the right amount of horsepower, the little decal was put on and signed, and with the amount of horsepower it turned on the dyno, most of that faded away over the years, the ink where they wrote it. But if they didn't make horsepower, they would pull it back into the factory and tear it down and figure out what needed to be done to make it do what it was supposed to. That didn't happen very often. So I just happen to have one of these kits on hand for the upgrade to 248 cubic inches, which is actually going to be somewhat of a downgrade since the tractor had the 3 3/4 pistons in it. Did I say 3 7/8? I mean 3 5/8. These are 3 5/8 pistons for the upgrade, which pushes it up to 248. So I'm going to go ahead and use these as the plan, because they have the right shaped bowl in them, whereas I bet those other ones are probably aftermarket high compression, which probably didn't help the whole situation with the burnt valve. But I was expecting broken rings myself, and but there's no signs on the walls. Let's go back over and look at the engine and turn it over. All right, go ahead and turn it over. So let's stop there for a moment. Yeah, usually when a ring breaks, where the gap is at, it'll cut into the sidewall and you'll see a line up and down. And I'm not seeing that. But there's still a lot of wear in these sleeves. This tractor was ready for an overhaul anyways. And I've got the pistons and sleeves, so it's gonna get done right with original Oliver parts. And I can see that piston there, that's got quite a bit of, I don't know if that's from corrosion or burning or what, but yeah, back in there it's kind of pitted, and whereas this one's fine. That one's got a little bit over there, tiny bit there. I don't know if these are M&W pistons. Probably would get them out, maybe there'll be some markings on them. So yeah, someone definitely upgraded this one to the, at some point. All right, let's move on to the next step. So, got the spring compressor on there. I want to see how bad this valve is burnt. And I took the keepers off. So now I just got to let off the pressure. Nice and slow. All right, here it is. Which it should have a I think this one has a rotator. Maybe not, but the seat don't look terrible. Yeah, I'd say that's a burnt valve. Cleaned it up some. Haven't pulled any of the others out. Probably should, just to see how many new valves I need to buy, or just get all new valves. This is the governor, which controls the speed of the gas engine. Got all 3 bolts out. You take your hammer, this is a Craftsman hammer. This one out here is a bump screw. That doesn't actually hold it on, so don't be taking that one off thinking that's what's holding you up. And it's also cast aluminum, so be careful. So Alan was just asking me how the governor works, and I thought, you know, I should address that. And so we have 2 rods that come off from here. This one hooks to your carburetor and controls the butterfly on the carburetor. This one with a spring here, this is what is actually hooked to your throttle that you move with your hand on the dash. And then that all comes to this lever, which is that's why there's a spring in here, so it can kind of fight what's going on in there. Once we get that apart, we'll explain the rest. Let me get this out of the way. Now, the governor is basically a balancing act. There's weights flying around in there, spinning really fast. And so they're trying to push the lever this way. You got the spring that we were there earlier that's connecting your hand lever. That's trying to pull it back that way, which opens the throttle up. So if your engine drops down in speed, the little weights that are moved by centrifugal force, they don't have as much force because it's going slower. So now your spring's stronger than the weights in there, and so the lever comes back a little bit. That opens up the throttle plate in the carburetor, lets more gas and air in, and you get more power. Once the engine gets up to a certain speed, then the governor weights have more centrifugal force. They can push this back forward against the strength of the spring, and that levels out the speed of your tractor so it doesn't just take off and head for the moon. There it goes. All right, so this is the housing. Yeah, there. You can see the plate that the governor pushes against that's also connected to this outer arm. Doesn't have far to move, it all happens in a short distance. Then we have the actual governor itself. You want to watch out because this bearing here, some of them aren't available anymore and balls could go flying. This one seems to be in good shape. There's this spool that goes through the middle of it all. There's a gear and there's a bushing on the back, so you want to be careful about the bushing possibly. Yep, bushing stayed with the gear. Because if you're working on this and not tearing the whole engine down, if it drops down in there, I'm going to find it because we're tearing the engine down. If you're still in the tractor and you're just working on it without tearing the engine down, and you drop this washer in, you're not going to be happy. So as this spins, these weights, centrifugal force pushes them out, which as you can see pushes this forward. That pushes on that lever, which is fighting against the spring. So depending on how fast it's turning, whichever one's the strongest wins, and they balance out. So you get going really fast, these are pushed way out, that's pushing the lever back against the spring, closes the carburetor down until it's all balanced out again. And at slower RPMs, there's less spring pressure, so it doesn't take near as much for this to come out and push against the lever and close it down some more. That's how she works, mechanical governor. You got this bearing here, and there's also pressurized oil from the oil pump in the whole system. Goes through that center hole, goes out to lubricate the bushing out here, and then it falls in and lubricates all this stuff. And you want to watch out for these things. They can, the weights can get loose and worn, break off. This one seems to be in good shape. There was different styles. There were cast iron weights. These are called a laminate weight just because there's several weights riveted together. There was a couple different sizes on this end shaft. The early ones were smaller like this, and then they increased the size. So I could get a later governor and put in this tractor, but I'd want the cover that goes with it because of the bushing size. But that is the gist of a mechanical governor. I'm gonna get this pulley off. Got the bolt out. That ain't the factory bolt. But we lose the washer. Put the bolt back in. And then just a chunk of heavy steel with a couple bolts drilled in the right spot. And you thread into those holes there. You drop your bolts and then you thread into those holes that are in the pulley and it pulls out. You can get a longer bolt to thread into the crankshaft like that, or I'll usually just take a socket and put against the original bolt, which looks like this. This one's out of the 1855, but they use the same crankshaft pulley bolt. And then I'll just either take a socket or a chunk of metal, something to space it in there so that this bar is pushing against the bolt head without the washer on. To draw the bolts up and pulls the pulley off. Thank you, Alan, for tapping the bolt holes out. This one's pulling off remarkably easy. Almost too easy. Look at that. This is a felt washer that keeps the dirt and crap out so it doesn't wear against the seal. This has the cork type seal that is behind the cover there. I might try to convert this over to a lip tight seal. They do seal better. This cover has a couple dowel pins, one right here, one right there. Loosening it up closer to the dowel pin is better, less likely to twist and break it. This is cover. It is aluminum, and Nope, there's not one over there. If you're taking it off, there's 3 bolts that come off from the oil pan. If you're just doing this to like change that front seal or something, chances are it's going to ruin the pan gasket while it's at it. So right in here is where that seal rides against. Here is the seal. It's a cork seal. And this one's got quite a bit of wear. It's not rough, that's usually good. All this cork does, it's spring loaded. It just pushes against this cover to seal it. So if there's grooves or stuff in there, it'll leak, especially at first. After a while, the cork can get seated in and they'll generally stop leaking or not leak as much. Sometimes tractors can sit for a while, this cork gets dried out and it'll leak at first, and then once the oil's gotten up there and flowed and soaked into the cork again, they'll start sealing again, but not always. But yeah, that's got some pretty good wear. I will probably be doing something to see about switching it over to a lip type seal. The best way, they came out with a lip type seal and they changed this cover. And you gotta change the pulley too. And I've heard of other guys doing it. They cut out in here and find a seal that fits this flange and the right size for the inside or the outside of the pulley. So we'll kind of cover that later. Here's that cork seal. There's a gasket. It's still on the gear here, but seals the backside so oil can't come through the middle. And then this seals against the lid and keeps it from the outside. Not shot, but it's seen its better days.